Hello and welcome back to the Pregnancy and Postnatal Entrepreneurs Collective podcast. I am your host, Niamh Cassidy, and I'm here today with Anke Roth, and we are going to talk about her transition from corporate work into the birth world. So Anke is a birth and postpartum doula, parenting coach and workplace consultant, and she's dedicated to supporting parents through every stage of their journey. Combining compassionate care with practical coaching, she empowers families and businesses to create supportive environments. Her mission is simple: no parent should feel alone at home, at work, or in the community, and I think we can all resonate with that. So thank you very much, Anke, for joining me today. And maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you were doing beforehand and then what inspired you to transition from that corporate life into the birth world.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, firstly, for having me. So yeah, what inspired me? I've been in the corporate world for over 25 years. I had a really good career there, but I also have 3 children. My first one was born in Germany, and then we moved to Ireland when he was 22 months old, and we settled here, and we now live here for 20 years, and I had 2 more children. And all that was always kind of, the juggles of being a working parent, and, trying to make a career. And I guess, everybody that works and has children can probably resonate with that.
Absolutely.
You always feel, right? You always feel like it's a juggle. It's always like, when you're in work, you're thinking about home. When you're at home, you're kind of checking your work emails and messages. So that juggle was real for me. I was managing global teams, international teams, and I really enjoyed it because, it made me somebody more than just a mom. But those struggles were also real. And oftentimes I felt very alone. And I oftentimes felt like I had to kind of, do it all and always be like Superwoman. And throughout the years, I always had this kind of secret thought in my head that if I could do it all over again, I would become a midwife. But life just didn't play out that way. And then one day in 2023, I was informed that I'm impacted by the layoffs in the tech industry. And you know what, Steve, that was a big shock, right? Like, I've been working for 25 years, going from, strong to stronger in my career, and, thought I did a pretty good job with juggling work and family life. But, it also, while initially it was a real kind of, a real shock, it gave me that moment that I didn't know I needed, that pause that I didn't know I needed. And again, I think some of the listeners probably can relate to that when sometimes life just happens and throws something at you that you didn't expect. It's a shock at first, but then it's also a moment to rethink. And I used that moment. I was in the middle of interviewing for another job, actually, in the tech world. I was walking my dog and, I was waiting for that moment to get clarity after having all this time off, and was waiting and waiting. One morning I thought, you know what? This is not for me anymore. There's something more to that. I always loved support like other people. I love to support my teams. I was kind of, within the workspace, I was coaching people, I was mentoring people, but I wasn't fully dedicated to that. And here we go. There was my opportunity. So I did a bit of research while interviewing at the same time, and I found this amazing doula training. I felt like, wow, this is even more than like being a midwife. This is actually what I really want to do, support people throughout that entirety of the journey, being their continuous kind of, support person throughout this major transition. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it have been just amazing if I had somebody on my side that would meet me where I am, where I needed them in the moment. So I decided to push back on the interviews within the tech job and signed up the same day for a comprehensive doula training.
Amazing. That's such a big change, so from tech, corporate tech, to doulaing and being very much in the life space of people and very much with people. And a lot of people who have transitioned from full-time work into the work have maybe come from other industries who might be more care-based already. I came from social care, other people may have come from nursing or from midwifery or different things like that into it. So what do you think, how do you think you were able to marry those two worlds, and what skills or lessons were you able to bring from your corporate job into the work that you do now?
I guess a few things, right? Firstly, I think it's important to say that this didn't happen overnight. Like, this is not just something, that got into my head and I was like, okay, I'm running with it. It was something that was in the process for a long time. I guess I've always been somebody that people kind of came to when they needed kind of, a listening ear, a shoulder to lean on. Friends, I had family, I had people within the workspace that felt very much like, I'm the one that kind of, it's just there for them and provides that space and that kind of space for vulnerability, I guess, is probably, the best way to put it. And then, as I said, like I was often thinking about what was kind of the one thing that I was missing as a working parent. And it always came back to this place of having somebody who's there for me without judging me, without kind of telling me what to do, but just there to kind of guide me and support me in the moment where I needed them, and being there kind of holistically and continuously. So you asked, like, what is it that I kind of brought from the corporate side? I guess, as I said, firstly, being a working mom and experiencing that myself has been a big lesson, understanding really what the struggles are for working parents. And the reality is that in our world today, we don't have that village that our parents or grandparents used to have, like, close family support right around the corner. We kind of all live quite isolated. We have very busy lives. And there's a lot of that kind of social pressure that we're feeling, we're seeing all those glamorous parents out there that, manage everything so well. And then we're sitting at home and thinking, why can I not do this? Why do I not manage to kind of just feel happy in the space that I'm in? So I guess for me then as well, from like the corporate side, as I said, I've been managing loads of people, and managing with empathy is something that I've always prided myself with. But I also worked in this crazy, fast-paced environment. So constantly dealing with high pressure and stress. And that actually thinking into the space that I'm in now has served me so well, because there's nothing more stressful than like birth and transitioning into this new lifestyle. And resilience is a big part of the work that I do now with clients around coaching, but also through my doula services. So I think all that combined really has served me well. Lets me show up as somebody who's real and not just somebody who kind of comes in with like the, studying something, but somebody who experienced it herself and has brought or brings that kind of experience into every conversation that I'm having.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of crisis management end of it is so important, right? Being able to think on your feet and kind of support people in that moment. You mentioned that kind of the redundancy gave a little bit of a push, but that there was also a process involved in it, in making that big decision to not continue with the interviews and to do something else instead. So can you take us through a little, because I know other people who might be thinking about this transition, it's something that's coming up for them.
Yeah.
So can you take us through a little bit of your thought processes or your steps, or maybe even some of the challenges you came up with, came against in making that decision and moving forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Neve, right? As I said, I guess firstly, there's a realization that this is not something that happens overnight. This is a process that takes time, but it is about kind of, I guess, carving out that time firstly, and being really honest with yourself and asking yourself those tough questions. Is this really what my purpose is? Is this really what makes me happy at the end of the day? Or is this just to pay the bills? And that's okay as well. But, if you have a job that just is there to pay the bills, then there's still space to do something different. And it all started for me with really taking the time to reflect. And I mentioned earlier how I was waiting for that moment where everybody talks about that moment of realization, right? And I remember, like, after I was laid off, I went for loads of walks. I even did a holiday just on my own with the dog, and I walked and walked and walked and, had those moments where it's just like, when is that moment? When is that actual, right? When does this hit me? And it didn't happen. And you know what? As soon as I let go of that kind of waiting for the moment, it actually came. The other thing that I've done is utilize help. I think that's another thing that is really, a challenge for us today, right? It's really difficult to say, I need help. But you know what? It just gave me so much space to just kind of realize it's not all on my shoulders. I can actually bring somebody in. And it was all about kind of getting somebody to ask what I perceive to be the tough questions, but in a more structured way. So I got a coach. I, experienced it in the past, like having having a coach is just something really, really helpful and powerful. And that's, how I became a coach myself. But I leaned back on that. I reached out to somebody and I just got them to help me bring structure into things and normalize some of that, right? I didn't have to go at 200 miles an hour. It was about taking those small steps and really taking those small steps in a conscious way and allowing myself that space to say, not every day is going to be like a big move in that direction, but every day brings you a little bit closer. And then talking to people. Honestly, like leaning on my network and overcoming that fear of looking like I'm a failure because I was laid off, right? I went through all those emotions. I was very much feeling like, oh, this is because I didn't do the job right, or this, and having somebody there to really tell me this has nothing to do with you. You're just a number at the end of the day. And there's more for you out there. Was really, really helpful, and getting people to really give me that space that I needed. So again, the biggest step is about being honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
Taking that pause and being honest with yourself is probably
I think there's so much value in that, in what you were saying, in talking it out with someone else as well, because we can have all these thoughts going around in our head and they're just literally going around in circles and circles and circles. And it's often when we say them out loud to somebody else and they can reflect it back to us and they can help us put some sort of structure on it, that it can really help with us still making our own decisions, but in being able to kind of put some context or clarity into them as well. And I wonder, in those fears of, you mentioned, will I be viewed as a failure or this type of thing, when you were making that decision to transition into a completely different type of work, were you worried about what people would think about you doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I guess we're all impacted by what other people think about us, right? Even a lot of us would say, oh, I don't care what people think. Oh, of course we do. And yes, I did, right? But again, it always came back to what feels right for me. And then, talking to people that are really close to me, my family, like my own children, said to me, Mom, don't do it. Don't go back to tech. This is not for you anymore. Like, yes, you did amazing, but it's not. Like, do what really is right for you. And I had long conversations with my husband about it as well. And he's amazing. He's so supportive and has always encouraged me to follow that path. But yeah, the funny thing is, initially, I think people thought, gosh, what is she up to? Like, is she, hitting midlife crisis, or what's going on? Like, why is she kind of deciding to leave like a big paycheck for something that doesn't even, she doesn't even know if it's going to work or not. But again, like, I had, and I still have moments, right, Neve? Let's be honest about it. There's days where I'm like, should I just go back into that madness and just, have a regular job? And I'm always like, no, this is not for me anymore. Life is short, and, the reality is, if I wouldn't have done it at the time, I would have regretted it forever. So I'm glad I did it. But then I've seen a lot of people reaching out and saying, wow, I really admire you taking that step. And funny enough, people actually said to me, like, I'm so jealous that you've been able to just leave all this behind and take this step into uncertainty. And when you're in the middle of it, you don't think that way, right? You're kind of just trying to get from one day to the other, but it's really kind of nice to see as well. And it's not that I need like people to tell me, how amazing it is, but it's nice to hear it as well. Let's be honest.
It is. And I think, our fears are often a lot bigger than what the reality ends up being. So we can be afraid of what people might think or what people might say, but really genuinely, most people wish us well and just want us to be happy. And if we can take away those blocks and just kind of say, okay, what would the people that care about me actually say? You know what I mean? It probably is going to be more that positive, like you experienced with your husband and your children, where they are going to kind of cheer you on in that as well. But at the same time, you said working for yourself, it's not easy. There's a lot involved in it. It's not like we just go out and get to like mind mammies and babies and then we go home and the job is done. So there can be those moments where you're kind of like, oh, would it just be easier if I just turned up for work and I went home and then it was over?
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I'd never go back to it either. I just,
Yeah.
the benefits far outweigh any
Mm,
perceived negativities. But I suppose one of the big worries people have, and it's a valid worry, is that financial change. Because when you're working for yourself, you're responsible for your income. You know, you're
absolutely.
responsible for building that up. And you mentioned, you know, it does take time to build up your business to a place
Absolutely.
where you are profitable, and that you're, you know, able to use your money to contribute to the household,
Mm.
and different things. So that can be tricky for people. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that, or anything that you think might be helpful for people when they're thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Neve. You make such a good point. And that was one of the big worries for me as
Mm.
well, right? As I said, like coming from that tech environment, money wasn't an issue, to be
Yeah.
honest, and all of a sudden I'm there kind of trying to figure it out myself. So I guess, firstly, again, it's important that those things don't happen overnight. So a little bit of planning goes into that, right? And you really have to ask yourself the question, what are kind of your kind of reserves right now? Do you have some money that you can invest in the business? The other thing is about, like, you need to kind of get yourself out there, right? Initially, I was
Mhm.
kind of like just doing my social media, sitting there waiting for people to contact me and hoping that somehow people magically show up and knock on my door. And that didn't happen. So it did take a lot of like stepping out of my comfort zone. What I learned over time is meet the people where they are, right?
Mhm.
People buy from people. That's firstly something that's so
Yeah.
true. No matter what the product is, obviously my service is very people orientated, but no matter what you do or what you're planning on doing, buy from people. So it is important that you are the one that kind of stands behind your business, and then go out there. Like, I started to attend event talks to people,
Mhm.
find out what is important to them, what are the biggest struggles that they are facing, and really just kind of getting myself out there. Then the other thing is, it's exploring kind of opportunities of how you can upskill yourself and train yourself without putting a whole lot of money at it, right?
Mhm.
There's like, different opportunities, different courses online or in person that are, either highly subsidized or sometimes even for free. People, as you said, Neve, people love to talk about what they
Mhm.
do. So talk to people, ask them, like, how did they do that? And I can guarantee you, nobody will tell you, oh, this just happened overnight and, something just landed in my lap. This is a journey for everybody, but people love to share that. And, we can learn so much from each other. And yeah, it is about obviously balancing it. Yes, there's more pressure of kind of, bringing money in, but I can guarantee you, like, it feels so good. The first contract that somebody signs and the first money that comes into your account is the best thing ever, because it really is the money that you kind of brought in, right?
Mhm.
You were the one that kind of obviously encouraged somebody to buy your service or to buy your product. And once you kind of have your first client, you kind of have learned so much already. And it's also about obviously having, the village, the network around you to kind of
Mhm.
ensure that you have people that carry you along, and you're setting realistic expectations for yourself. Sit down, put down those goals and really kind of make it more specific for yourself, so that you're not just, kind of running like a headless chicken and trying to get work in, but really be, yeah, kind of considerate about like what is the right path for you. And then people will find out that you're
Mhm.
truly passionate about what you do. And the people that match with you, the clients that match with you, will come to you eventually. But again, it takes time. So don't expect that to happen overnight.
Absolutely. And I think it definitely takes time, and then being confident about putting the time into it as well, and getting the
Mm-hmm.
support to do that, as you mentioned. Because I think what can happen for some people, and some of the clients I've worked with, is they either make a decision to transition out of full-time work, or the decision is made for them, in your case.
Mm-hmm.
And then there seems to be this expectation, either from themselves or from other people, that they are now stay-at-home parents, so therefore are fully available as a stay-at-home parent, whereas their intention was to set up a business. So being really clear with the people around you of what your intentions are,
Mm-hmm.
and that you actually now have another job. It's not that you don't work. anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And being able to kind of say, whether it's these are my working hours or this is my working space or whatever it might be, that you're making that commitment to yourself and to your business so that it does work out for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such a good point, Neve, that you're making there, because I jumped into that exactly same hole, right? But it was me more than
Yeah.
anybody else that was like, oh my gosh, now I have time. I can catch up on all those things that I lost out on with the children because, I spent long hours in work and I traveled a lot and now I can do all this. But then all of a sudden you're like, but I also have to work. And then you end up in this kind of limbo, and we already set yourself up as the taxi driver for the children to drop them everywhere, and you're doing all the dinners and lunches and all those great things. But it's exactly right. You need to be very clear with yourself and with everybody around you to say, even so I might not bring money in straight away, it takes that work to actually get to where I want to get to. And I need to be disciplined with myself. Yes, the flexibility is fantastic, right? But it is about, again, it starts with yourself to set those boundaries for yourself, to say there's work time and then there's time that you spend with your family, with your friends, and, very important as well, with yourself, because being in that space as self-employed can be very lonely. So you have to find ways of finding your own new tribe again, as I say.
Absolutely. And I think that balance can work different for different people, depending on what stage they are in their life and what they want from their life and business as well.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. It's just about making sure that if you want to make this transition into working for yourself, that you are putting some level of commitment or time frame on it, that you don't just get sucked up by all the other things in life, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden there's no time to promote yourself or to get clients in.
Exactly.
And then you're saying, oh, it didn't work. But really what has happened is you haven't had the space to allow it to work.
Exactly.
And a lot of people do dream of either leaving their corporate careers for this type of work. Maybe they're doing it on the side already. So have you any kind of other advice or things that you feel might be helpful for people in that position?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of firstly understand what really motivates you, what drives you, what are the things that you enjoy. And I understand that everybody comes from a very different kind of basis, right? Like some people have to work to pay the bills, but then it's about kind of carving out that space to figure out what it is that you enjoy. So it is important to kind of be planned and I think this whole work-life balance thing is a myth, right? It's about kind of how do we best invest our own energy in the things that really matter to us. And it is about carving out the energy to also do the things that you're really passionate about. I think the other thing, Neve, is around really doing that kind of research, doing the exploring, doing the talking, doing the, getting the help, and being, as I said earlier, being really honest with yourself. And then, obviously ensuring that you have kind of the setting that is right as well for you. So those things for me didn't happen overnight. Like even so I was in corporate, I was dreaming of not being in corporate for a long time, but it just wasn't the right time for me. And I did obviously need that kind of pause that was coming from outside that forced me to kind of take that moment and then start reflecting. Other people are much better about being self-motivated around that. Again, it's about understanding your own kind of inner drive. And I think it is about kind of really asking yourself those tough questions. And being honest with yourself. I know I come back to that, but it really is about being honest with yourself. Is this the right time? And just because a dream can't be true maybe in the moment, it doesn't mean that it can't be true later on in life. So sometimes the time is just not right, but the dream and the wish is still there, and it's never going to leave you, and eventually you will get there. And sometimes you have that opportunity and you jump on it. But it's really about embracing it. My experience has been that with me pushing myself out there, and it wasn't comfortable at first. I was really on edge, going to those events and even, talking in settings like that, it still kind of puts me a little bit on edge. But that being said, every conversation that you have with people opens up an opportunity that you might never thought about. Now I speak to people that I would have never met in my life just because I decided to go to those events or,
Mhm.
move over to somebody. One thing that somebody said to me, and it really sticks with me, is if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So I really go with this now. So I just talk to people, ask them for advice or ask
Mhm.
them for, what they do, how we
Yeah.
might be able to collaborate. And, if the answer is no, that's okay. But if I
Mhm.
didn't ask, then, I know the answer would definitely be no.
I think that's really good because we can get so stuck in our own heads about things
Mm,
that we make up these stories about how people might, what they might think of us and how they might feel about
yeah,
us and,
yeah,
how it's going to feel
yeah,
if they say no and all of that. Whereas sometimes we do just have to say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And in
exactly.
most situations, it's just that they say no. And that just
Yeah,
means that you're exactly where
exactly.
you were a minute ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You never go backwards. You always go forward.
Yeah.
And even asking that question moves you forward because
Mhm.
it's another time that you overcame your own fears and just reach out to somebody.
Yeah. And I think what you were talking about, the networking and finding your community within it, is a really
Yeah.
important thing that I feel as well. I think that working on your own can be isolating, as you said,
Hmm.
and being able to find other people either in the birth world or outside of the birth world who are
Absolutely.
also working for themselves, and you can get motivation from them and seeing what they're doing. You also learn from other people in what they're
Yeah.
doing as well, and everybody knows a pregnant or postnatal family. And
It's
your
so true.
network is important from that point of view
Absolutely.
as well. So I do think that's really important. And a lot of people, despite kind of coming into this caring and wanting to look after people, a lot of people that come into the work are also quite introverted. So this
Hmm.
idea of kind of putting yourself out there, for myself included, was quite scary and
Hmm.
did take a long time. But what I've found is that some people are just naturally confident in these type of situations, or they've learned that at a younger age. But for most of us,
Mm,
it's something that we actually have to practice. You know what I mean? And then,
absolutely.
just like anything, the more we do something, the more confident we will get at that particular thing. So, like driving a car, when you're starting to learn, you're so nervous. I had like fingernail imprints in my hand from holding on so tight. But then as you do it more and more and more, you get better at it and you get more confident. And I think
Absolutely.
if we can understand that and tell ourselves that it's not that we're too shy or not peoply, you know what I mean, that actually we just need to practice a little bit more, that we
Absolutely.
can get better at that type of thing.
Yeah, no, so true. I couldn't agree more, Neve. And I'm exactly as you are. Like I very quite introverted, right? So it did take me some time. But you know what? Every time I did it, I felt so much better.
Mhm.
And once you've done it once, you can do it again, you can do it again, and you can do it again. And that's exactly what it is. It does take practice. And, also when you do things for yourself, you're so passionate about it that it just comes across.
Yeah, it really does. For you, in making this transition, what has been the best part of it or the most rewarding part of it for you?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many. I think firstly, obviously, overcoming my own fears, right? That's
Mhm.
been a big one, let's be honest about it. But it's sometimes much more the quiet moments when I start supporting a family and I see them being really unsure about what's kind of happening and they're reading all this information out there and it's such an information jungle as we know and people get really nervous and what about this and then you kind of start to help them navigate that world and the information and
Mhm.
find the right path for them and just sitting down and listening and holding the space for them and not judging them. And then you hear that little moments of, I'm glad, so glad I reached out for help, or I'm actually able to breathe again.
Mhm.
Those are the little things. They seem like little sentences maybe in the moment, but those
Mhm.
are the real big milestones for me because I realize how much I've helped to just bring confidence, but
Mhm.
also grounding into that situation that people don't feel like I have to be perfect at everything and recognizing that they're human and that everything that they do is the best they can do at the time and they're doing absolutely amazing. And taking that step of asking for help is a massive step, as we know, especially in today's society where everybody thinks they can do everything
Mhm.
on their own, but realizing that that human connection is so important. Yeah, so it's really those little things when I see a family really embracing the moments and also being able to just say, you know what, I need a break. Can you help me here? And I do that. Like I take the baby and I look after the baby, and mom and dad can go for a nap or go for a walk together or whatever it is. It's absolutely fine. It's never about like you doing something wrong or you're failing. You're actually doing yourself and everybody else such a favor by taking the help that is out there. And people want to help. It's so funny. I hear it all the time. Like, people are like worried about asking for help. I'm like, gosh, just do it, because people love to help, especially new parents.
Yeah.
And they'd love to come in and bring you food and just be really there for you, make you that cup of tea, and don't say no. Just take it. It's
Absolutely.
okay.
I say the same when I'm visiting new parents at home for breastfeeding support. It's like, if someone offers it to you, just say yes.
Absolutely.
They're offering it
Absolutely.
because they want to help you.
Yeah.
So allow them,
No.
let them feel good about themselves.
Exactly.
By you
Absolutely.
saying yes. So Anke, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to give us, or anything additional that we haven't covered already?
Yeah, it's been amazing, like chatting to you today, to Neve. So it's just, I think for me, the final thought would be that I would always tell people, follow your heart, no matter what it is in life. If you follow your heart, you can't go wrong. Is it about like a career transition? Is it about like what feels right and wrong when it comes to, your baby? What feels right or wrong when it comes to the maternity care? It really goes back to that kind of confidence in your own abilities. And we're much more capable of things than we often think. We're so critical with ourselves, but when we're starting to actually realize how much power lies in following our gut feelings, then we've gone a big, big step. And I think it is about finding new ways of building our own villages, right? Like our society today looks very different. A lot of families are different now because both parents are working and trying to juggle things, and we don't have that kind of village as we might have heard from our parents or grandparents. So it is about leaning on the community. There's many, many people out there that feel exactly the same way as you do. Don't hesitate to reach out, be part of the community, join people. And I guess the other really important lessons that I have learned over the years is look after your own well-being. If you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else, right? The one thing that always resonates with me is when you're in the airplane and they're telling you to put your mask on first before you're putting it onto, children or people that kind of need your help. And that's exactly right. It's such a good visualization of what really is true. If we don't look after ourselves, we can't look after anybody else. So it's about
Absolutely.
really, following that as well. Don't beat yourself up over making mistakes. We all make them, but it's about like recognizing it and then giving it another go moving forward. So yeah, there's loads of things that I learned, I guess, over the years, and especially since I started that journey of being a doula and a parenting coach. I learned so much from other people. My clients are the best teachers because they always kind of put that mirror in front of me. And I often say, oh, I made all those mistakes, so I just want to make sure you don't do the same mistakes that I have made.
Absolutely. And I think that's lovely as well, just that reminder to care for ourselves as well. So if people want to find out more about what you do, Anke, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is kind of the one-stop shop. My website is ankeroth.ie. So that's ANKEROTH.ie. Another way to connect with me is on Instagram. That's Anke Roth Doula. As I said, my website is a great way to connect with me. You can send me an email as well. That would be anke@ankeroth.ie. And I get back to you whatever way you choose to connect with me.
Liz, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I think it'll be really helpful for so many people who are either at that point where they're making a transition or who are thinking about it as well. So I'll put your website and your social media handles in the show notes as well for anyone who is looking for them. And thank you all for listening, and we will be back next week.